Roxy and JP, Tyler Zulli, myself, Renee, we have a lot to talk about starting with Saturday's game. Not a great game for the Philadelphia Union. It's week after week getting a little bit exhausting of us trying to say, like, next game, maybe this has to change. Quite frankly, you lose 2-1. You're up 1-0 early with a goal in the first 3 minutes. You end up losing 2-1 to Inter Miami, who was shorthanded without Lionel Messi, Luis Suarez. And Miami had 2 players. They were down 2 players with 2 red cards. Like, it just felt like it couldn't get any worse. It did. Yeah. Not good.
And it was at home.
Thank you, Roxy. And it was at home. So I know in the chat, Ivan and Al and everyone, listen, we're going to get our frustration out of here because there's a lot to complain about. This team is, I mean, like, now what? I don't even know where to go from here. I don't even know. I've tried so hard to be optimistic. I think I'm all out of optimism.
Oh, I mean, like, the reality kind of set in. I mean, like, when you go down to Subaru Park on Saturday night, you know, it's Union Miami. You kind of expect a lot of black and pink, right? Like, it's Messi's in town. Well, Messi's team's in town. Not Messi, but Messi's team's in town. There's still a lot of 10 Messi shirts. And, you know, off of the Julian Carranza news, and obviously we get the confirmation from Jim after the game that, listen, he's gone, right? And, like, now we have to kind of settle into this reality of not having a prolific scorer when we're already struggling this season. But I think, like, Saturday was just a big wake-up call to everyone. Like, the championship window, Renee, I think it's finally over. And it ended on Saturday. And I know it's still in the middle of the season, but when you, like, even if this team, Renee, were to go on some type of a winning streak that we are hoping that they can finally start to go on, do you think that they in the playoffs can beat a Miami, beat a Cincinnati, beat a Columbus, beat an Orlando, a New York Red Bull? Do you think that they could beat any of those teams? Because I personally cannot. And if you're going to bring in some signings, you obviously have to replace Carranza. You still need some depth in this team because obviously we looked at what these past 2 offseasons have. You can't get players in here to mesh with the team quickly and get ready for the playoffs. Like, it just feels like this window is shut.
It's shattered. It's not shut. There's no window. It's gone. Roxy, I'm curious to know, in all your years as a Union fan and following the team, is this the worst that you've seen it? Is this we've had some bad, dark times for the Union, don't get me wrong, and it felt like things were moving in the right direction. And I agree with you, JP, this past week felt like the ultimate moment for everybody of, like, it's over. Burn it down, start again, try all over again. What are your thoughts on this?
That's what I was reading a lot about, that they need a reset.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of feel like this is probably the worst, and I think it makes it worse because not too long ago, the Union actually was doing really good. Like, exactly. We made it to the playoffs. We were, like, in the finals. Like, so now that we are losing to a team that are down 2 players, and at home, I mean, I don't know. Like, it looks really bad. I do not have hope. I'm with you. So, yeah, I think that they need a major reset.
They have yet to play a full 90 minutes this year. Like, that first half Saturday, I thought that was really good.
It was good.
They moved the ball well. They were playing good defense, which obviously, listen, without Suarez and Messi, make things a little bit easier. But we talk about it. Like, if you're going to play this style of soccer, you need to play a full 90 minutes. And they have yet to do this entire season. That's why we're talking about 7 straight winless. But to lose in that fashion, like, you had Ua score a great goal.
3 minutes in.
3 minutes in.
Glesses made a great play, too. We've killed him as well. And then in the second half, you just shut down completely? Like, that's uncalled for.
It went from the first half where Inter Miami defensively looked like cones, and they were caught in transition. That's how the goal happened. Caught in transition, very flat at times, to then swing. And what I was confused about, in the first half, it was like, okay, the Union are creating chances. They're all around the goal. They're looking for that second goal, that insurance goal. And then it was like they just stopped. Like, I don't even understand how it swung so much that it became Inter Miami down a man and then down 2 to now have the better of play, better of transitions, getting out into space, stretching the back line. That second goal that happened, Jacob Glesnes looked like he had cinder blocks on his feet. He was moving like 2 steps slow. This team right now, they just run out of gas, it feels like. And that's why I do feel like it's time to bring in make changes. This isn't it. This group isn't it. And it's only, unfortunately, feels like it's going to get worse.
Yeah. I mean, shouts to our friend Jose Nunez, because he goes into the locker room. He's asking Kai Wagner the tough questions. And Kai's talking about, they're both talking about the lack of just help for this team, the lack of signings. And if that's the mentality of a guy like Kai Wagner, how do you think the rest of the dressing room feels? it's a tough spot that they're kind of put in right now. And right now they're trying to find that confidence again, right? Like when you play Union soccer, you play as a collective unit. And right now, I think the mentals are shattered a little. You brought up shattering. The mentals right now are a little shattered for the Union. And when they were at their highest, 2022, when you were all enjoying their soccer, right? They were confident bunch. Yeah. Every single match, they walked out there and they knew they were going to beat you. And they lost that edge. How do you find that? That's going to be the tricky part. And at this point, again, I don't feel like they can find that.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. You had a chance against a shorthanded Inter Miami team that's without key pieces and a chance to like jump on them a little bit. They obviously need a result. They've won one game in the last, 11 games now. And it's been a lot of losses, but it's been a lot of ugly losses. And Roxy, you're from Miami. So let's just talk about the elephant in the room. This is low-key your squad that just beat on the Union too. These are both your teams, so you're a little torn.
Your babies.
I get that though, because I run into the same issue with my LeBron fandom with the Sixers. But when you're torn like that, Inter Miami versus the Union, you know, what's a game like this mean to you when you are looking at it?
If I'm being totally honest,
it
doesn't hurt me as much. I'm sorry to say, as like a diehard, born in Philly, grew up in Philly fan. I was low-key very excited when I found out Miami was getting an MLS team. And then I was even high-key excited when I found out they were getting Messi. So, you know, I still have to love Miami. I mean, I was born and raised there, but I live in Philly now. I definitely have love for the Union. I've been connected to the Union a lot longer than I have Miami. So they're still number one for me, but Miami's a very close number two.
Respect.
We have a lot of people who are finding MLS, which, listen, this is the positive of Messi, right, in Miami. Yeah. We have a lot of people who are finding their way in the MLS. I mean, I was watching the goals that Miami scored and seeing the people in the crowd, see some kids in those pink jerseys. So, I mean, I get it. It's raising the profile of the MLS. You know me, Renee. I'm 5 for 5.
Yeah, and you're one of those, I feel like,
Philly through and through, yeah.
You're like, these new fans these days. But it's great to see. We've got a wide range. I always make the joke, you have the casual fans. You have the fans that are just enjoying the vibes and the, you know, environment. You have the fans that are like true diehard soccer fans and born and raised and soccer through and through. So this is where the growth of the game is helping to be able to reach so many people. That's why it also makes me, I think, a little bit more frustrated, because right now there are so many more eyes on soccer. There's so many more eyes on MLS play in general. And the Union have a prime opportunity to show why people should be interested in them. Like, I think the Phillies right now, although they just lost back-to-back series, going to London was like a great example of that. It was a chance on a big stage to show people this is what the Phillies are all about. This is what baseball is all about. This is why you should support us. They won new fans. The Union are like, not only forget winning, because they're not doing that, they're losing a lot of fans too. And they're putting themselves in a position where, as acquisitions and roster moves and trades are coming about, who's going to want to come to the Union? Already they were dealing with that issue. They didn't want to pay. They've always been cheap. So they're not going to pay for players. And then on top of that, with the struggles of late, just not playing a good 90 minutes, not playing good soccer, you look at a team like Inter Miami, you look at FC Cincinnati, they play on Wednesday, you look at LAFC, all these other teams, they're just putting out a better product that's more enticing for fans, for players, for coaches to want to be a part of. I mean, that's a big part I feel like that's missing with this group now. As you talk about your fandom, that they don't have that same draw right now. It was Union Yards. It was the galas where we connected. It was like they had these opportunities, but they've now fallen so short of even connecting with fans, which...
You are so spot on.
That's not good.
You are so spot on. Because
not good.
Think about this fumble that we just did, right? 22, the peak of the Union in their history, right? You make it to the MLS Cup final. They're breaking records for scoring.
Right.
And instead of capitalizing on that popularity, what do? Back-to-back off seasons where you really don't bring any signings of impact. Damian Lowe has been the one impacting signing in the last 2 seasons on a team that was still really good, and you couldn't capitalize on that. And now you're going to have to run into the situation where, what do you do with the squad, right? Like, what do we do with the squad? The way the championship winner that we had, you can't build off of that. You unfortunately now have to kind of turn the page and find those new pieces. And it just fumbling the popularity that we were at its peak. It's just it's unacceptable, quite honestly.
You guys are the experts. So why do you think that they are not willing to spend the money they need to get the players they need?
That's been the biggest issue. They won't spend, and you have to spend to be able to keep up with the rest of the league. I mean, you look at Inter Miami bringing in Messi, like their teams are giving out millions of dollars for players to be able to acquire them. And the Union, I almost said the Phillies, the Union are spending the bare minimum. They're bringing in a lot of young players, homegrown talents, those 18, 19-year-olds. I know they obviously brought up David Vasquez this past weekend because of the roster shortage with having players away for international duty. So they did make this official move to add David Vasquez to the roster ahead of the match against Inter Miami. You know, that's an academy product. That's a homegrown player that you're signing to a short-term agreement. It's been very small moves, piecemeal things of, you know, depth pieces, young pieces, future pieces, but none of them are making an impact now. Even a Kevin Sullivan, to be honest, who we've all talked about, 14-year-old sensation, great from a marketing and PR perspective. But what does that do for the team right now? How does that help them Saturday? How does that help them Wednesday?
But isn't he supposed to be going overseas anyway at some point?
So 18.
Yeah. So is he? I mean, is he even going to play at any point?
Right. That's my issue.
I'm gonna put this easily for everyone, and for people out there who don't watch the MLS as well. This is good for you as well. So like everyone eats Chipotle, right? Like we've all had Chipotle.
Oh, not Chipotle.
So when McDonald's bought Chipotle, they
know McDonald's bought Chipotle.
I didn't either.
I got you guys.
When did they buy Chipotle?
That was a while ago. So McDonald's, when they bought Chipotle, they landed on a landmine, right? Like it's a great. We've all had it in its early 2010s. Like it's a great product, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they just had that. They never invested in it. They never made it a better product. They just let Chipotle be Chipotle. And now you fast forward to 2024. You go on TikTok, you go on Instagram. Everyone's slandering Chipotle. But because you didn't invest in that product, that's what happens over time. And kind of the same thing here for the Union. Jay Sugarman, when he went into the MLS, he bought it for like 50 million, something very low. Yeah. And it's gained so much profit over the years because the league is just continuously growing. You get Messi in here, you get the Apple TV deal. So for Jay Sugarman, it's easier for him to sit back, keep selling us, hey, we're buying the best kids in the area. We're going to build a team through our youth academy. Kids don't cost a lot of money to put on your team. You know, building a youth academy doesn't cost a lot of money. We don't cost a lot of money. Bringing a Messi, bringing a Giroud, bringing these big name players.
But they're only coming in when they're ready to retire from overseas.
Right.
You just got to continue investing.
Right. And that's the other problem is you look those players, though, as a Giroud, a Messi, when they come in, even though they're not in their prime, they're still able to help contribute.
Yeah.
And I do think there's value in bringing in those aging players that have the experience, have had a chance to win championships and, you know, be the best of the best and play internationally in World Cups and Olympics and things like that. Whereas for the Union, they're bringing in kids. They're bringing in young players, and they're hoping they can develop them or hoping they can honestly get money or trade for them or something to build up the homegrown product and the foundation of this group. And they have had talent that it actually has worked out. They have had over the years the Brendan Aaronsons and Paxton and Mark McKenzie's where it did work out, but then they didn't capitalize and continue off of that. Then they got complacent. And I know in the chat, I'm seeing Ivan mentioning, like, why didn't the Union invest 1 and 2 quality players back when they made that MLS Cup final run? That was the time. Instead, they ran it back with the exact same group. They got a little bit comfortable almost and complacent, and other teams made changes to boost their roster, and the Union never did to keep up. And now they're behind the 8 ball. And so it requires you to have to spend a lot of money versus if they had done 1 or 2 quality players here and there. I mean, Damian Lowe is a great example. Add a couple more Damian Lowe's. You know, add a couple other players that are going to help start, help you win games, be somebody that could be a 90-minute player versus guys that require a couple years before they're even ready to be at that spot. So it is a little frustrating because they've had the foundation's been there, defensively especially. You have from Andre Blake in goal, you know, Jack Elliott, Jacob Lessons, Ali Brewer. They've had those core players, but they haven't done anything to add to them. It's been the same group running it back.
Yeah, Jose's spot on here too. They've spent on facilities to create the players via youth. It's tough when you overdo it on that end. Gotcha. Can't go all plastic like Miami. Got to grow, but also be comfortable with the mercenaries. So something in between. I've talked about that before. Like, I love the blueprint of a Columbus, right? Of a Cincinnati, where they are spending money, but they're spending it in a smart way. And then you see Cincinnati and Columbus. That was literally Eastern Conference Finals last season. So 2022, you had the crux of a really good team. And instead of building on it, building a bench, because also you have CONCACAF Champions Cup, right? You need depth. That's where they didn't strike. That's where they didn't take advantage of, and this is where we're at right now.
See, my issue is I feel like if you're winning games, especially you win a championship, for example, that's the biggest investment you can make. You now can show your club winning championships, making deep runs in the playoffs. It's going to make more players want to be a part of your team. Versus if you're losing, and yes, the facilities that they built out, beautiful. Union Yards, the field there, everything's great that they've been doing outside the game. But that doesn't translate into wins, which doesn't translate into keeping players, which doesn't translate into keeping players that you have happy. Now people don't want to be there as much because they're like, oh, another game that they're getting frustrated. As Jeremy's mentioning, you're running the same group back 3 years in a row, the same formation, the same tactics. It gets predictable. It gets stale.
We all silly like the mayor.